Hi guys, it's Don here from RichWisdom, and today I'd like to talk to you about a great book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by Harv Eker. Now, the first takeaway from this book that I'd like to talk about is the rich think big while the poor think small. The reason this tends to happen is because a lot of rich people tend to think more from a big point of view. For example, they always like to invest big or think more long term, whereas the poor people tend to think really small and also tend to let small problems be bigger than them. A good example is you'll see lots of poor people lining up to save 20 cents or 30 cents off something, while rich people are constantly looking for bigger and better ways of making money. Now, the second takeaway from this book is that the rich see opportunity while the poor see obstacles. Now, the one thing that rich people always say to themselves, especially in their thoughts, is that I create my life, is what they always say to themselves, while the poor tend to say life happens to me. Now, the thing about this is that a lot of poor people love to complain because they see obstacles in everything, while the rich never really complain. All they see is opportunities, and so they're constantly thinking of solutions, while the poor are constantly focusing on problems. So the thing about this is like attracts like, and which is why you'll never meet a rich victim, simply because the poor love being victims, love complaining, and love focusing on their problems and just meeting up at bars and just talking about their problems and just complaining about how the rich keep getting richer and how they keep getting poorer. Then the third thing I'd like to talk about is that rich people admire successful people, while poor people resent rich people. Now, the thing is, one thing I'd like to discuss is just a quick example from my own life, in that there was a guy who had a business where he was telling me about how he managed to make a lot of money in a very quick amount, within a very short space of time. And so while this person was telling me about this successful business strategy or this quick way he was making money, he in a way was actually teaching me. So he may have been boasting or just talking about how he made it and being very, very happy with his success. He was also happened to be teaching me. And so him being a rich person was actually telling me how to do it, while a poor person in that same situation would have just resented that person and wouldn't have wanted to listen to what he would have had to say. Now, the fourth thing I'd like to talk about is rich people are willing to sell, while poor people hate selling. In fact, they really, really think of it as the lowest thing ever. Now, the thing is, in order to make money, you need to sell, and it's important to figure out new and exciting ways to sell your products or sell your services and help sell solutions rather than trying to avoid selling. Now, the fifth thing I'd like to talk about from the book is rich people choose to be paid based on the value that they add, while poor people choose to be paid based on the time that they spent on their project. Now, this may seem a bit hard to believe, but a lot of poor people like to be based on an hourly basis, would say, oh, okay, I need a minimum of £15 an hour. You see lots and lots of crowds of people going to rallies and protesting and, demanding minimum wage go up, and also going on strike and demanding that they get paid more for less work. Yet the rich people are constantly thinking of new ways to add value and new ways to improve the lives of others. Now, the sixth thing I'd like to talk about is that you are not poor because you don't have money. You don't have money because you're poor. Now, this is a mindset, simply because a good example of this is that what you can't see is more important than what you can see. So an iceberg has 90% of its body under the water, and the reason being is that the stuff that you can't see is more important. Another thing that we tend to have in our minds is something called a wealth thermostat. So this thermostat would dictate how much money we allow ourselves to earn or to physically have. For example, if you grew up earning $2,000 a month, meaning that if you develop a business that makes you $5,000 a month or $6,000 a month, you'll actually start to self-sabotage, and eventually you'll go back down to that $2,000 a month. The same can be said about lottery winners. Every time they get a huge amount of some money, they just need to get it away from themselves and just go back down to the amount of money that they have. You never hear lottery winners talking about saving money. They're always talking about new and exciting ways to spend their money. Now, the seventh thing I'd like to talk about is that the rich people play to win, while the poor play to lose, play not to lose in the money game. So rich people would take the kind of risks that are needed in order to maximize wealth. And one thing to understand is that they also take steps to reduce risks as well. So to say that in worst case scenario, this would happen and that would happen. So for example, in many cases, some of them would put in stop losses or clauses in certain contracts that help protect their investment, while the poor would play not to lose and say, oh no, I cannot take that risk. But what they're more than happy to do is gamble on the lottery. Now, the eighth thing I'd like to talk about is that the rich are willing to learn and grow, but the poor seem to think they already know. And it's important, that a lot of rich people always invest in personal development, and this is really, really key, while poor people kind of just go to work and come back home and sit and watch TV and look at pieces of paper, like degrees that they have and PhDs, and think they're done. The education is finished. But, education goes on forever. In my native language, there's a saying which says, learning never ends. and that is true. Now, the final thing I'd like to talk about is how our thoughts lead to our feelings, which lead to our actions, which lead to our results. So one thing that the author was talking about in this book was that two people sitting side by side in the same class could have two different results. Even though they'll be receiving the exact same information, one would go off and succeed exceedingly well, while the other would fail. And that's simply because of the beliefs and the thoughts that are in their minds. So thank you so much for listening to this review, and please like and subscribe to my channel for more rich wisdom.